come on stage Laila von Alvensleben. Laila, please come on stage and an applause for Laila, please. Thank you very much for being with us. And Laila will tell you about unforgettable virtual retreats. So when we prepared for this presentation, so we did our call together, she described it and it's really amazing and I think you will like it. So Laila, the stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefan. Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I know this is the last talk of the day, and I'm sure that you're looking forward to the DJ and doing a little bit of this. I wish I could throw a party for you right now, but actually I haven't been invited to DJ. I'm invited today to talk to you about how my team adapted to thrive by designing unforgettable virtual retreats during the lockdown. My name is Laila von Alvensleben, and I'm head of culture and collaboration at MURAL. And I'll come to MURAL in a minute, although Stefan described it so well. But first, I want you to take a moment and think about where you were in April 2020. So in April of last year, you were most probably in the same place that I was, basically stuck at home during the first lockdown. So it wasn't the funnest of moments, right? And yet there were people who were finding ways to have fun online. This was a time when people were discovering that they could have online drinks or quarantinis. They could have online trivia quizzes with their friends and family, and also online birthday parties. And my birthday happens to be in April, and of course, I wanted to have my own party. So being the MURAL fan that I am, I decided to take a step further and combine MURAL and Zoom to have a complete virtual birthday house party. I wanted to create the kind of event where people could bump into each other randomly. So as an online facilitator, I'm very familiar with Zoom's breakout rooms. I knew that I could take my guests, and split them into breakout rooms. But I didn't want to force people to go anywhere. I wanted them to choose where they could go. So how did I do this? I opened a MURAL. I Googled house plan. I found an image of a house plan, just a random one. I put it in a MURAL, and then I added digital sticky notes in each room, just with a different name for each room. And then on each sticky note, I added a link to a different Zoom room. That way, when I would invite guests to my virtual birthday house party, they could decide which room to go into at any time. And to help my guests, of course, I created a schedule. So this was a very organized house party. And I added multiple time zones because I had friends joining in from all over the globe. And each activity was color-coded as the sticky notes in the room. So this was super, super organized. But as you can see here, you have different activities that are overlapping each other. So people could really have this impression of being at a festival or at an event like today, where you could decide where to go. And clearly, I could not be in each Zoom room at the same time. And luckily, I have a great group of friends who are willing to host these activities. So I reached out to a few people, and we started out with a master of ceremonies, my friend Lindsay. She kicked off the virtual party, giving a few guidelines for the people who had never used MURAL and Zoom before. And from there, you could decide where to go. So maybe you would roam into a room and learn how to make cocktails with Amlika, or maybe you wanted to learn how to illustrate with Leon. You could get a tarot card reading with Daniel and Sequoia. You could shake your booty with DJ Consti. And we even had a party crasher because every party actually needs one. And I really wanted to take this event as an opportunity to dress up. I was really fed up of wearing my house clothes and pajamas for a month. So I created a mood board, just a collection of inspirational images, and had a theme for my birthday. So this was COVID-19, and my birthday was called Co-Bling 35. And it was all about bling bling, sparkling things. And I just gave these images to my friends and said, you do what you want with it. So on the right, you can see the Zoom and how my friends decided to reinterpret the bling bling theme. It was really fun. I had a great time. But the best part of it was when my friends came to me later and said, Laila, we really felt like it was an actual house party. There was this random guy in the kitchen, in the virtual kitchen, just hanging out that we met. And then we bumped into people we didn't know, but also sometimes they just couldn't find me. I had a couple in Paris who told me, we were looking for you in all the Zoom rooms for 2 hours, and we never bumped into each other. So it really did feel like a house party. Now, why am I sharing this? Well, this was an inspiration for the events that we did at Mural. But first, let me say that I could not imagine having done this event without using Mural. For people who haven't used Mural, at first sight, it may look like a regular virtual whiteboard. But Mural is so much more than that when you start playing around with it. Mural is a digital workplace for visual collaboration. And every day, millions of users are using Mural in their meetings, in their workshops, and other online sessions to make them more visual and more engaging, and to do what we like to call imagination work, helping teams to innovate faster and smarter. As Stefan mentioned before, Mural has been remote first, even before COVID-19, and we know quite a lot about online collaboration. We had an office in Buenos Aires and in San Francisco, but when we say we were remote first, it doesn't mean that we were the first company to work remotely. It just means that the way we worked defaulted to online always. So even if people were in the office, we always took into consideration people who were working from home, with people like myself. I have been remote actually since 6 years. But of course, there is a time needed for people to come together and connect in person. So once a year, we did company retreats like this one. This was actually the last one we did in person. It took place in Buenos Aires in December 2019. And back then, we were a little over 100 people. Now, a few months later, the pandemic hit, and with that, a huge number of companies needed tools like Mural to collaborate remotely between each other. And as the demand increased, so did our team. So in less than 2 years, Mural has grown with over 500 people. And we are still hiring between 10 and 20 people a week. And as you can imagine, that comes with a huge set of challenges, some which you may have experienced yourself as you've gone into this remote way of working. One of the many challenges that we have is how do we continue to foster our company culture? And how do we get people to connect when they can no longer meet in person? So this is where the birthday comes in, because that was a starting point and gave me ideas on how we could meet virtually together. Now, we could have done what a lot of companies did, which was go on Zoom, bring a few snacks and drinks online, hang out, and play some games, which is fine. It works really well. But in my role as head of culture and collaboration, I'm expected to do amazing experiences and create something that goes beyond that and set the bar really high. So today I'm going to share 2 stories of how we did that. One takes place in a magical maze, and the other one takes place in a world trip. I'm going to start with the most recent retreat, which we did back in March of this year. As I mentioned earlier, our team was growing immensely fast. We're experiencing super growth. And the CEO at the time described this chapter of Mural as a renaissance, a moment in which we're going through a rebirth. There were so many new people coming in, so many workflows and processes changing, that the company was no longer the company it used to be. And to commemorate that moment, we decided to do a retreat and get all these new people to meet each other. So this is a website, the homepage of a website that we specifically created for the event, Mural Renaissance 2021. I'm going to guide you through that website a little bit. You would log in with your Mural email, and one of the first things that you would see was a mural embedded on one of the pages. So on this mural, we had a video and a few instructions, similar to my birthday party, explaining what was going to happen. This retreat was going to take place over the course of 3 days. And one of our concepts, which was key to this retreat, was a labyrinth, which we renamed the Mural Maze. And the idea was that people were going to go on an individual journey. They were going to embark on this journey by entering the Mural Maze. And they would be alone sometimes, or sometimes they would bump into other people. Sometimes they would get lost, and that was okay. But the idea was that you would go and experience many different activities and discover many new things about Mural, and you would come out of it as a new person. You would be reborn, and Mural as a whole would be reborn coming out of this labyrinth. And the other great thing about this maze was that it kept people engaged because we had hidden activities and hidden information that we would reveal every day in the maze. So it had people coming back again and again throughout the course of the retreat. Another key aspect, or maybe the main point of this retreat, was the schedule. I'm sure that many of you have experienced the pain of trying to find a time that works for everyone when you have different time zones. So we thought about how can we make everybody spend time online without forcing people to stay online super late when they're in New Zealand or start super early when they're in California, because we have teams spread out across the world. And as a solution, what we decided to do was create an event that was going to be open for 12 hours a day. And what you see here is just a fragment of that schedule. We had over 80 activities going on, hosted by different facilitators, including internal volunteers. And these activities were split into 4 themes. We had entertainment, which included things like a cabaret, gastronomic experiences, magic shows, and DJ live sets. We had learning, where people could learn new skills, such as facilitation, but also things that were not related to work, such as how to prepare a tea ceremony, dream interpretation, how to make cocktails. We had gathering as a theme, which included fireside panels with leadership or exploring different virtual platforms as groups. And then we had a reflection theme, which was more focused on well-being, including things like dynamic breathwork and yoga. And ultimately, what we managed to create was an event where people could choose their own adventure. We weren't forcing people to do anything. They could stay on as little or as long as they wanted. So to create an event of this size, as much as we got help from internal volunteers, we also needed some external help. And we worked with a company called Abracadame, who specializes in creating unique team-building experiences with companies by using a mix of facilitation and magic. And they do this with a team of experts they call magilitators. And what's really special about this was that we were bringing magic into this experience. And I'm not just talking about card tricks, but different kinds of magic between optical illusions and mentalism and all kinds of perception changes. And what was interesting was to see how people were rediscovering their inner child and bringing an element of playfulness to the event. We also had this opportunity at the retreat to focus on our teams. As I mentioned, there were a lot of new people, a lot of new teams that were created. So in every retreat, even if you're meeting in person, there's usually a moment where teams come together, they put their projects and their usual work aside, and they come together to get to know each other. So the only mandatory exercise or activity that we had for everyone was to join one of the Magic of Teams workshops. And in this workshop, we went through the stages of development of the team using Susan Whelan's model of group development. And after that, each team was invited to create rituals that they would carry forward even after the retreat. So to give you an example, one of the teams came up with a ritual that they would kick off every meeting with something they called neighborhood gossip. And neighborhood gossip was essentially people in that team around the world sharing local news of where they were from. And before deep diving into the agenda of the meeting, they took this moment to talk about what was happening around the world, which also emphasized one of our company values, to think global. Now, having done previous events in person, one of the things we realized is that there are a lot of introverts as well at Mural, and to keep introverted people engaged the whole day can be really draining for them. And not only that, we have a lot of experience doing online webinars and workshops, and we know that staying in an interactive activity all day can become really exhausting. So we focused also on setting some performances and having some showtime, where people could just sit back and passively enjoy an experience through their screens. And one of our most popular events during this retreat was a live cabaret with trapeze artists and sword swallowers and many more artists. And yes, you could think these people could just go on YouTube and just look at a cabaret on their own. Why do they need to come to Mural or to Zoom and see this as a company? But there's something different that happens when you're watching a live performance in real time with your colleagues and seeing all their comments in the chat, and then also sharing that later, for example, in Slack, and then other people who went to other events having a sense of FOMO or fear of missing out because they didn't go to that event. And at the same time, it helps people just relax and enjoy some showtime. Another thing that we really wanted to do is make this retreat family-friendly. So yes, our employees were at home, but so were their children. A lot of them were homeschooling their kids. So each activity was accessible to children. And here you see some screenshots during a live DJ set. And it was just really wonderful and human to see our employees bringing in their children spontaneously and dancing with them. This is not something you would often do. Here on the right, you have our VP of Operations dancing with his daughters. And it was just a really special moment where you got to see what that person was like with his family. And speaking of spontaneity, one thing that is really difficult to do as well when you're online is just reaching out to somebody and having a casual conversation or coffee. You actually have to schedule that in their calendar. So at Mural, we talk about planned spontaneity, which doesn't sound really fun either. So we went beyond Mural and we looked at other platforms that we could experiment with. And more specifically, we looked at audio-spatial platforms. For those who aren't familiar with audio-spatial platforms, they're basically platforms where you can enter a virtual world as an avatar and move around in a virtual space. And as you're moving around, you'll meet other people who are in that space. And the closer you come to them, the better you can hear them. So it recreates that sense of being in the same place and bumping into people without any plan before. So here are two examples. On the left, you have Mibo. And Mibo is this tropical island that you can enter as a floating robot. And your face is projected on the screen of the robot. It's super, super delightful to use. I can definitely recommend it. I even went there by myself just to listen to the seagulls. I mean, that was how sad the lockdown was. But it was a really great island to go to by yourself or with people. And here people were just hanging out around a virtual campfire. And at one point, on one of those 3 days, the CEO came and started playing the guitar and a song around the virtual campfire. And those who weren't there really missed out. On the right, we have a scene from Verbella. Verbella is another audio-spatial platform. It's also an online campus that you can customize as you wish. And you can also create your own avatar and dress it up as you want, give it whatever hair and skin color that you want, and walk around. So in this scene, people actually jumped on a boat and had a conversation as they were speeding around through this virtual ocean. So with that, we managed to create these serendipitous moments that we couldn't have done if we were simply in Zoom. At the end of the 3 days, we asked for people to share their thoughts in a bigger mural, and here is just a glance of some of the feedback that we got. Overall, people were left with a sense of awe and wonder at what we had created and everything they had seen, and a deep appreciation for the diversity of our team, not just from a global perspective, but also from the diversity of skills and interests that people at Mural had. So after this event, people went back working at Mural, feeling more confident and more connected to everybody else, and really starting this new chapter of Mural's renaissance. And this brings me to the second event that we did. This was back in August 2020, when Mural had successfully raised Series B round of funding. Now, the leadership team knew about it, and a few other people like myself, but we hadn't announced it yet to the company before we announced it publicly. So the leadership team came to me and asked, can we do some kind of celebration with everyone, something really special? And this was a time when nobody could travel. So together with another team of volunteers, we brainstormed a little, and we thought, since nobody can travel right now, we're going to make them travel virtually. And the result was the Mural World Tour, a 3-hour trip around the world with all our colleagues. And as any trip, we had an itinerary. So the idea was that we would start in Zoom in a virtual airport lounge, Then we would board a plane together. And then on that plane, we would travel to different destinations, including mountains, an island, to eventually go into outer space and then land on planet Mural. And we wanted to put a lot of thought and consideration into how can we make this event, this world trip, as real as possible. So starting from the very beginning, the very first touch point, if you want, of this experience, we invited people at Mural to join us on Zoom by sending them a boarding pass. This boarding pass had all the time zones so that people knew when to join us on Zoom. And it also had a fun little sponsor video, if you scan the QR code, of an unofficial sponsor of the world tour. We also wanted to think about the 5 senses. And one challenge for me was, how can we make this virtual retreat more tangible? So in order to do that, we shipped physical event props to everybody's home. This was no easy task. I had 10 days to prepare the event. I spent a whole weekend, I think 18 hours on Amazon, just shipping things to people. I would love something automated to do that. And what we sent were little props that people could use at every part of the event. So there were different activities in each destination. And we told them, when you receive the package, open it and just have things ready for the day. To give you an example, we had sleeping masks for the flights. We had lip balm for when they were going to be in the mountains to protect their lips that were going to dry out in the snowy mountains. And we had sunscreen and a little hand fan, a portable fan that people could use on the tropical island. And all these props really activated things like smell and touch and so much more. On top of that, we gave them access to a folder where we bundled together some Zoom backgrounds. The idea was that if we all had the same Zoom backgrounds at the same time, it would feel like we were all in the same place. So each background was matched to one of the destinations. Everybody downloaded them and put them on their Zoom account, and then they just had to wait for the instructions on the day. So the day comes. We're all in Zoom in the virtual airport lounge, and the CEO makes an announcement about the Series B funding. And the first thing we tell them is, put your disco lights on, and all of a sudden you see 250 little Zoom screens with these rainbow colors flashing, and of course we play some music to celebrate. And then we say, okay, switch your backgrounds, put on your passenger seat background, we're going on a flight. And to make this even more real, we had volunteers who were role-playing. So we had flight attendants making announcements in English and in Spanish. We have a lot of teammates in Argentina. We had 2 pilots, including Captain Laila, in the cockpits. We had an air traffic control person in the top right. You have to see Mark Tippin. He was sharing sound through his Zoom of planes landing and taking off. And it just felt really real. And what was amazing to see was everybody was going with it. I mean, this could have been a total failure, and people could have said, I'm not feeling it. But somehow, the whole company went with it. They put on their masks. We had people just laying back with their eyes closed and just relaxing to get ready for this flight. So it was a fully immersive experience, touching all the senses. Now, the first destination was going to be the snowy mountains. And what we wanted to do there was to break the ice. So since we had so many new hires, we wanted them to get to know each other. And to do that, we sent them a mural template that included a digital passport. We asked people to fill out the passport beforehand, and then our facilitators broke everybody out into Zoom breakout rooms where they had to network. Now, I said that Mural is a space for visual collaboration, and there's something to be said as well about being in Zoom and also having something to look at. It actually makes people much more interactive and not just kind of staring at each other's faces. Especially if you're a little bit shy, you kind of enjoy having that double thing to do. And the aim here was to network with other people, and each time you spoke to somebody in a different team, you would stamp your passport with that person's stamp. So each team was assigned a different stamp. And here you can see in my example, I spoke to people in the marketing team, for example, and customer experience team. And the aim was to talk to as many people as possible from teams that weren't your own. The next destination was a tropical island. And this is where we split people up again into rooms to solve riddles in escape rooms that were built entirely in Mural. Now, we had never used Mural for that before, so that was already a very new, innovative way for us to use it. But this was also a way to get people who had never worked together before to actually come together and find a solution. And I have to say that where there were 5 escape rooms, each one would open another one, and they were pretty hard, so none of them actually managed to finish all 5. But the great thing was that we also got new hires to use Mural in ways that they had never done before. And finally, leaving the tropical island, we were in outer space. We gave people their in-flight meal, which was a little astronaut snack, part of the props. And then we told them you can sit back and enjoy a show that we're going to show you. So before the retreat, I had also reached out to people who knew how to play music or enjoyed singing and created the MURAL Band. And my initial idea was to get this MURAL Band to play a song live on Zoom. But then they came back to me and they said, Laila, technically it's going to be really complicated. We might have lagging issues and so forth. So what they did instead was they picked a song. It was Everlong by the Foo Fighters. And they each recorded that song by themselves. This was lockdown, so just record themselves playing and singing the song. And then they compiled the song together and made this amazing video that I recommend to look for in YouTube. So if you put the MURAL Band, you'll find it in YouTube. And since then, not only did they release that one song, but they have continued to release cover songs for every employee newsletter that we've launched. And personally, it's my favorite part of the newsletter. I know I should be looking at other things, but this is a little baby that we created. And also, the effect during the retreat was just incredible. People were at home. They were really craving for some exciting shows. They hadn't done anything cultural for months. And all of a sudden, you see your teammates just rocking it out. So it felt like you were at a live show just watching this amazing band playing. So I could keep talking on and on about virtual retreats forever, but I will wrap it up. And I know that it can seem daunting to create live events online of this scale. But I want to leave you with some resources that hopefully will be helpful. The first one, the maze link, will take you to a YouTube video where we summarize what the Renaissance retreat was like, what we learned, what we experienced, together with Abracadame, who helped us to put it together. The second link, the world tour, is going to take you to a case study that I wrote explaining how we prepared that retreat step by step, along with instructions on how you could do it as well. And I'm super interested to know if anybody does their own virtual retreat, what that was like. So if you launch something, let me know and share your stories, because I'm sure that we can continue learning from each other. And remember, not to overcomplicate it, not to worry if things don't work out as you planned. We also had some experiments that failed. That's why they're called experiments. But more importantly, remember that you can just think of something small and take your imagination and see where it goes, and it can go a very long way. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Laila. That was amazing. First of all, I would like to ask, has someone here in the audience in their company does something similar? Ah, okay. There are some. So at that scale? For me, that was really fascinating when I saw it. We have times for questions. Please, there's the microphone if you want to ask Laila something around their virtual retreats. Okay, then I can start. So I have one question. So you at Mural, you were also before Corona a completely remote company. So I think at that time you only did normal retreats, probably once a year, where you flew all together.
Right.
Will you do this again when Corona is over, or do you now completely remote and only do virtual retreats?
Well, that is the most common question I get from the team when we have a company all hands, is when is the next company retreat happening? And for now, we said it's really complicated logistically because different countries have different restrictions, travel restrictions, vaccination restrictions. So we're not sure when we're going to do an in-person retreat. At the moment, it's just not planned. But what we are thinking of doing is doing a hybrid retreat. I don't know what that will look like yet, but basically, since we do have some cities with a bigger number of employees, it might look like having things done virtually together, and then people meeting in these hubs. So, for example, we have a lot of people in Atlanta, people in Ireland, people in Buenos Aires, and we could do things in both places, virtual and physical.
So you will go physical again?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, so other questions? Yeah, there is someone. Please.
Hi, I'm Marina. Thank you very much for sharing. We actually use Mural also for digital leadership training, and we did something similar, taking people to Verona to get them for executive presence on stage. And
Amazing.
I like very much what you shared on the large scale, and I was wondering, what are the things that you learned from that that you would not do again or do differently next time?
That is a good question. So in the one with the world tour, one of the biggest feedback that we got was that having a plenary session, so a session with everybody in the same Zoom for so long, was a bit restrictive. So that's why in the second retreat, so I flipped it in the presentation, but the second retreat was the Renaissance. That's why we gave people all the options. And then people said, I had FOMO the whole time, because there were like 100 workshops and activities you could join. So I think what I would change next time is really balance it out, have some plenary sessions and some places where you can decide to go out and about. That is like the first one that comes to mind. Also thinking about the props that we sent, for example, the first time, we had some issues with people not receiving them and then not being able to fully participate in the same way. That was due also to customs, holding things back, different shipping problems. Also with the pandemic, it wasn't easy. So I think I would think more about how can we make sure that everybody can participate in the same way to make it more inclusive. And yeah, also continue sending things that are related to the event and not just sending swag for the sake of sending swag around.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's just a little one and it's easy, but thank you for sharing to have the rooms of your birthday party and just add the Zoom links.
Yeah.
So you can already redirect people from that. So that was already a nice takeaway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So are there more questions? So I would have one last question, and this is not around the virtual retreats, but around your normal work style, because most of the companies now who were transformed by Corona and the work style changed completely. I assume now when you were fully remote before Corona that in your normal work style nothing changed at all. Is that right or is that wrong?
I would say it's 90% right. Not much changed for us, so it was really easy to transition to being in a Corona setting, fully remote. But we did have an office with maybe, I think at the time we were maybe 50 plus employees in Argentina or more. And so I would say that for them it changed quite a lot because they were used to going to the office and having this social time together. And especially in Argentina, the whole culture is very, they like to talk, they like to hang out, they like to spend time together. So they really miss not meeting in person anymore. But at the same time, they also really like working from home. So I think that for them, it will be a hybrid opportunity when we can open the office there again.
Okay, yeah. So is there one last question? If not, I would thank you very much.
Thank you.
Laila, thanks for the insights and a big applause for Laila.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.